Reading through the Bible in 1 year, August 21st, 1 Samuel 13, Romans chapter 11, Jeremiah 50, and Psalms 28 through 29. Saul was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 42 years over Israel. Saul chose for himself 3,000 men of Israel, of which 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash, in the hill country of Bethel, while 1,000 were with Jonathan at Gibeah of Benjamin. But he sent away the rest of the people, each to his tent. And Jonathan struck the garrison of the Philistines that was in Gibeah, and the Philistines heard of it. Then Saul blew the trumpet throughout the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear." Then all Israel heard the news that Saul had struck the garrison of the Philistines, and also that Israel had become odious to the Philistines. And the people were then summoned to Saul at Gilgal. Now the Philistines assembled to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people like the sand which is on the seashore in abundance. And they came up and camped at Michmash, east of Bethaven. Now the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were hard pressed. Then the people hid themselves in caves, in thickets, in cliffs, in cellars, and in pits. And some of the Hebrews crossed the Jordan into the land of Gad and Gilead. But as for Saul, he was still in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. So he waited 7 days according to the appointed time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people were scattering from him. So Saul said, bring near to me the burnt offering and the peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. And as soon as he had finished offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came. And Saul went out to meet him and to greet him. But Samuel said, "What have you done?" And Saul said, because I saw that the people were scattering from me, and that you did not come within the appointed days, and that the Philistines were assembling at Michmash. Therefore I said, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal. And I have not entreated the favor of Yahweh. So I forced myself and offered the burnt offering. At least he's being honest about it. And Samuel said to Saul, You have acted foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of Yahweh your God, which he commanded you. For now Yahweh would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom shall not endure. Yahweh has sought out for himself a man after his own heart. And Yahweh has appointed him as ruler over his people, because you have not kept what Yahweh commanded you. Then Samuel arose and went up from Gilgal to Gibeah of Benjamin, and Saul numbered the people who were present with him, about 600 men. Now Saul and his son Jonathan, and the people who were present with them, were staying in Gibeah of Benjamin, and the Philistines camped at Michmash. And the raiders came up from the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. One company turned toward Ophrah, to the land of Shual, and another company turned toward the way of Beth Horon, and another company turned to the way of the border which overlooks the valley of Zeboim in the wilderness. Now, no blacksmith could be found in all the land of Israel, for the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make swords or spears. So Israel went down to the Philistines, each to sharpen his plowshare, his mattock, his axe, and his goad. And the charge was 2/3 a shekel for the plowshares, and the mattocks, the forks, and the axes, and to fix the goad. So it happened on the day of battle that neither sword nor spear was found in any of the hands of the people who were with Saul and Jonathan, but they were found with Saul and his son Jonathan. And the garrison of the Philistines went out the garrison of the Philistines went out to the pass of Michmash. Let's move on now to Romans chapter 11. I say then, Paul continues, has God rejected his people? He's speaking of the Israelites now. May it never be. For I too am an Israelite, and seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. God has not rejected his people whom he foreknew. This is the elect. We've already spoken about them. Or do you not know what the scripture says in the passage about Elijah? How he appeals to God against Israel. Quote, Lord, they have killed your prophets. They have torn down your altars, and I alone am left, and they are seeking my life. But what does the divine response say to him? I have left for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. In this way, then, at the present time, a remnant, according to God's gracious choice, has also come to be. But if it is by grace, it's no longer by works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. What then? What Israel is seeking, it has not obtained. But the chosen, the elect, obtained it, and the rest were hardened. Just as it is written, God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes to see not, and ears to hear not, down to this very day. And David says, let their table become a snare and a trap, and a stumbling block and a retribution to them. Let their eyes be darkened to see not, and bend their backs forever. I say then, did they stumble so as to fall, meaning like a permanent falling? May it never be. But by their transgressions, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make them jealous. Now, if their transgression is riches for the world, and their failure is riches for the Gentiles, how much more will their fullness be? But I am speaking to you who are Gentiles, inasmuch then as I am an apostle of Gentiles, I magnify my ministry. If somehow I might move to jealousy my fellow countrymen, Jews, and save some of them. For if their rejection is the reconciliation of the world, not everybody everywhere, but the people outside of the those who are Jews, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? And if the first piece of dough is holy, the lump is also. And if the root is holy, the branches are too. But if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive, again speaking to Gentiles, were grafted in among them, and become partaker with them in the rich root of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches. But if you do boast against them, remember, it is not you who supports the root, but the root supports you. Well, you will say then, well, branches were broken off, so that I might be grafted in. Quite right. They were broken off for their unbelief. But you stand by your faith. Do not be haughty, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. Behold then the kindness and severity of God. To those who fell, severity. But to you, God's kindness, if you continue in his kindness, otherwise you also will be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in their unbelief, will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut off from what is by nature a wild olive tree, and were grafted contrary to nature into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these, who are the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? For I do not want you, brothers, to be uninformed of this mystery, so that you will not be wise in your own estimation, that a partial hardening has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. And so also Israel will be saved, just as it is written. The deliverer will come from Zion. He will remove ungodliness from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. From the standpoint of the gospel, they are enemies for your sake. But from the standpoint of God's choice, they are beloved for the sake of the fathers. For the gifts and calling of God are irrevocable. For just as you were disobedient to God, but now have been shown mercy because of their disobedience, so these also now have been disobedient, that because of the mercy shown to you, that they also may now be shown mercy. For God has shut up in all disobedience, so that he might show mercy to all. Oh, the depth of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable are his judgments and unfathomable his ways! Who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has become his counselor? Or who has first given to him that it might be repaid to him? For from him, and through him, and to him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen. There's the rest of the notes for you. This now ends the doctrinal section of the text, and tomorrow we begin the practical, the how now shall we live section. Let's move on to Jeremiah chapter 50. The word which Yahweh spoke concerning Babylon, the land of the Chaldeans, by the hand of Jeremiah the prophet. Declare and make it heard among the nations. Make it heard and lift up a standard. Do not conceal it, but say, Babylon has been captured. Bel has been put to shame. Marduk has been shattered. Her images have been put to shame. Her idols have been shattered. For a nation has come up against her out of the north. It will make her land an object of horror, and there will be no inhabitant in it. Both man and beast have wandered off. They have gone away. In those days and at that time, declares Yahweh, the sons of Israel will come, both they and the sons of Judah as well. And they will go along weeping as they go. And it will be Yahweh, their God, that they will seek. And they will ask for the way to Zion, turning their faces in its direction and saying, Come, in order that they may join themselves to Yahweh in an everlasting covenant that will not be forgotten. My people have become lost sheep. My shepherds have led them astray. Rather, their shepherds have led them astray. They have made them turn away on the mountains. They have gone along from mountain to hill and have forgotten their resting place. All who came out against them have devoured them, and their adversaries have said, We are not guilty. Inasmuch as they have sinned against Yahweh, who is the abode of righteousness, even Yahweh, the hope of their fathers. Wander away from the midst of Babylon, and go forth from the land of the Chaldeans. Be also like the male goats at the head of the flock. For behold, I am going to arouse and bring up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the land of the north, and they will arrange their battle lines against her. From there she will be taken captive. Their arrows will be like a warrior who makes one childless, and who does not return empty-handed. Chaldea will become spoil. All who take her spoil will have enough, declares Yahweh. Because you are glad, because you exult, O you who plunder my inheritance, because you skip about like a threshing heifer, and neigh like valiant steeds. Your mother will be greatly ashamed. She who gave you birth will be humiliated. Behold, she will be the least of the nations, a wilderness, a parched land, and a desert. Because of the wrath of Yahweh, she will not be inhabited, but she will be completely desolate. Everyone who passes by Babylon will be in desolation and will hiss because of all her wounds. Arrange your battle lines against Babylon on every side. All you who bend the bow, shoot at her. Do not be sparing with your arrows, for she has sinned against Yahweh. Raise a loud shout against her on every side. She has given herself up. Her pillars have fallen. Her walls have been pulled down. For this is the vengeance of Yahweh. Take vengeance on her. As she has done to others, so do to her. Cut off the sower from Babylon, and the one who seizes the sickle at the time of harvest. From before the sword of the oppressor, they will each turn back to his own people, and they will each flee to his own land. Israel is a scattered flock. The lions have banished them away. The first one who devoured him was the king of Assyria, and this last one who has broken his bones is Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Therefore, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I am going to punish the king of Babylon and his land, just as I punished the king of Assyria. And I will return Israel back to his pasture, and he will graze on Carmel and Bashan, and his desire will be satisfied in the hill country of Ephraim and Gilead. In those days and at that time, declares Yahweh, search will be made for the iniquity of Israel, but there will be none, and for the sins of Judah, but they will not be found, for I will pardon those whom I leave as a remnant. Against the land of Merathaim, go up against it, and against the inhabitants of Pekod. Put them to the sword and devote them to destruction, declares Yahweh, and do according to all that I have commanded you. And the noise of battle is in the land, and great destruction. How the hammer of the whole earth has been cut in pieces and broken. How Babylon has become an object of horror among the nations. I set a snare for you, and you were also caught, O Babylon. But you yourself did not know. You have been found and also seized because you have engaged in conflict with Yahweh. Yahweh has opened his armory and has brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For it is a work of the Lord Yahweh of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans. Come to her from the farthest border, open up her barns, pile her up like heaps, and devote her to destruction. Let nothing of her remain. Put all her young bulls to the sword. Let them go down to the slaughter. Woe be upon them, for their day has come, the time of their punishment. There is a sound of those who flee and escape from the hand of Babylon, to declare in Zion the vengeance of Yahweh our God, vengeance for his temple. Summon many against Babylon, all those who bend the bow, encamp against her on every side. Let there be no escape. Repay her according to her work, according to all that she has done, so do to her. For she has become arrogant against Yahweh, against the Holy One of Israel. Therefore, her young men will fall in her open squares, and all of her men of war will be silenced in that day, declares Yahweh. Behold, I am against you, O arrogant one, declares Lord Yahweh of hosts. For your day has come, the time when I will punish you. The arrogant one will stumble and fall, with no one to raise him up. And I will set fire to his cities, and it will devour him on every side. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the sons of Israel are oppressed, and the sons of Judah as well. And all who took them captive have held them fast. They have refused to let them go. Their Redeemer is strong. Yahweh of hosts is his name. He will vigorously plead their case, so that he may bring relief to the earth, but turmoil to the inhabitants of Babylon. A sword against the Chaldeans, declares Yahweh, and against the inhabitants of Babylon, and against her officials and her wise men. A sword against the oracle priests, and they will become fools. A sword against her mighty men, and they will be shattered. A sword against their horses, and against their chariots, and against all the foreigners who are in the midst of her, and they will become women. A sword against her treasures, and they will become plundered. A drought on her waters, and they will be dried up. For it is a land of graven images, and they are mad over terrifying idols. Therefore the desert creatures will live there along with the jackals. The ostriches also will live in it, and it will never again be lived in or dwelt in from generation to generation. As when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah with its neighbors, declares Yahweh. No man will live there, nor will any son of man sojourn in it. Behold, a people is coming from the north, and a great nation and many kings will be aroused from the remote parts of the earth. They seize their bow and javelin. They are cruel and have no compassion. Their voice roars like the sea, and they ride on horses, arranged like a man for the battle, against you, O daughter of Babylon. The king of Babylon has heard the report about them, and his hands hang limp. Distress has taken hold of him, agony like a woman in childbirth. Behold, one will come up like a lion from the thicket of the Jordan to an enduring pasture. For in an instant I will make them run away from it, and whoever is chosen I will appoint over it. For who is like me, and who will summon me into court? And who then is the shepherd who can stand before me? Therefore, hear the counsel of Yahweh, which he has counseled against Babylon, and his purposes which he has purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely they will drag them off, even the little ones of the flock. Surely he will make their pasture desolate because of them. At the sound, Babylon has been seized. The earth is shaken, and an outcry is heard among the nations. Now let's conclude today in Psalms 28 through 29. To you, O Yahweh, I call. My rock, do not be silent to me, lest if you are hesitant toward me, I will become like those who go down to the pit. I hear the voice of my supplications when I cry to you for help, when I lift up my hands toward your holy sanctuary. Do not drag me away with the wicked and with workers of iniquity, who speak peace with their neighbors while evil is in their hearts. Give to them according to their work and according to the evil of their actions. Give to them according to the deeds of their hands. Return their dealings upon them, because they do not regard the works of Yahweh, nor the deeds of his hands. He will tear them down and not build them up. Blessed be Yahweh, because he has heard the voice of my supplications. Yahweh is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. Therefore my heart exalts, and with my song I shall thank him. Yahweh is their strength, and he is a strong defense of salvation to his anointed. Save your people, and bless your inheritance. Be their shepherd also, and carry them forever. Psalm 29. Ascribe to Yahweh, O sons of the mighty. Ascribe to Yahweh glory and strength. Ascribe to Yahweh the glory of his name. Worship Yahweh in the splendor of holiness. The voice of Yahweh is upon the waters. The God of glory thunders. Yahweh is over many waters. The voice of Yahweh is powerful. The voice of Yahweh is full of splendor. The voice of Yahweh breaks the cedars. Indeed, Yahweh breaks in pieces the cedars of Lebanon. He makes Lebanon skip like a calf, and Syrian like a young wild ox. The voice of Yahweh hews out flames of fire. The voice of Yahweh causes the wilderness to tremble. Yahweh causes the wilderness of Kadesh to tremble. Yahweh. The voice of Yahweh makes the deer to calve and strips the forest bare. And in his temple everything says, glory. Yahweh sat enthroned over the flood. Indeed, Yahweh sits as king forever. Yahweh will give strength to his people. Yahweh will bless his people with peace. That's it. That's all of the notes, and that is also all of the text for today. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold the word of the Lord.